Don't mind me. Hi, Pumpkin. I'm so good.
Good morning. Hi, I'm Amy Adams. I'm a 1L at Lewis and Clark Law School. Thank you for coming to How Can I Get a Job Advocating for Animals? We have 4 amazing panelists who are going to help us answer that burning question. We have Pam Frosch, Natasha Dolezal, Tom Linney, and Pam Hart. Morning. And I'll turn it over to Pam Hart.
Thank you, Amy. Good morning, everybody. And it's wonderful to see all of you here at 8 o'clock in the morning, so I really appreciate that. This is a panel which is near and dear to all of our hearts. Some of our most enjoyable time spent in this field is just talking with students and working with students to help them get into the animal law world as practitioners, and also to help people who are practitioners transition from their current practice into an animal law practice. And so this panel is really about you. And we want to have a lot of time for Q&A, and we want to be able to answer your questions, and we want to brainstorm with you. So I think what we'll do first is we will show a video. What we did was we talked to some alumni from a variety of different schools, including Lewis and Clark, some of whom are here, some of whom are not here, but we asked them if they could give advice to you on how they got into the animal law field. What would they say? So we put together, it's about a 15-minute video, and so I think we'll just go ahead and start showing that, and you'll be able to hear from a lot of different people with a lot of different backgrounds, but all of whom are working in animal law, and they'll give you their tips on how to get into this field. So I think I know how to do this. There, that's Laura. And dim the lights. Okay, let me. Let's see. Lights. Okay. Oh, I did it. I did it. Thank you. There we go.
Hi everyone, I'm Laura Dunn. I'm a staff attorney for the Animal Legal Defense Fund. I work in the Criminal Justice Program. My husband and I share our home with our cat Panther. He is a rescue from the Oregon Humane Society here in Portland. If I could give one piece of advice to law students and professionals looking to get into the field of animal law, I would say that networking is really key. Taking advantage of opportunities like this Animal Law Conference, where there are so many professionals who work in this field every day, I think it's really important to be bold, introduce yourself to these people, and follow up after you have these great conversations. Follow up after the conference and reiterate your interest in them and their organization. I would also say that once you get that opportunity, that great clerkship or internship, to really take advantage of that and act like a professional. Treat that clerkship like a job. And finally, what I love most about going to work every day at my job in animal law is that I wake up inspired every day to do this work. And you really can't ask for more than that in a job.
Hi, I'm Jessica Johnson, and I'm Senior Manager of Grassroots Advocacy for the ASPCA. And this is my dog, Brody. Hey, hi, Brody. When I think about something that I would do differently in law school, I don't think I would have forced myself to take certain courses just to be well-rounded. Maybe that sounds like that. I could have figured out in my heart of hearts I was never going to be a tax attorney. So I skipped that tax class and take another animal law course, or a clinic, or an internship, or a volunteer position. All of the things that really give you the experience that you need in order to step into an animal law job. So that's my advice for people looking for an animal law career is to just start doing it. Volunteer, take an internship, and try to work for as many people in this field as possible and do good work. Because those people are the ones that will be able to vouch for you when you've applied for a position, or they'll have you in mind when they need to grow their team and hire someone. And one more piece of advice for law students, take that moot court class. It's scary, but it's totally worth it. You're going to hone a lot of amazing and useful skills, and you'll get to feel really smug at the end of it when you've survived.
Hi, my name is Laura Hagan. I'm the Deputy Director of Advocacy and Legislative Affairs at the Massachusetts Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals in Boston, Massachusetts. I'd like to offer a few pieces of advice about how to get a job in animal advocacy. First and foremost, get experience in the field. There's just no substitute. Take advantage of any opportunities that your school offers to receive credits for working, and if you don't have those opportunities, then volunteer. Don't be afraid to reach out to people in the field, send them your resume, and let them know that you want to use your skills to help. And if you don't hear back from them, email them again. This is a resume that helps you build relationships that will open doors for you in the future. My second piece of advice is to be flexible, both in what you do and where you do it. First, be flexible in what you do. There are many more jobs available in areas such as programmatic work or policy than there are in other areas such as litigation. Keep your mind open and you'll see that there are many more opportunities available than you expected. The second is to be flexible geographically. Again, there are more opportunities available in certain areas than others. If this is your dream job, you'll need to pack your bags and go to where the job is. If you don't have that flexibility, then be patient and looking for a remote position or something that opens up in your area. And finally, please stay positive. Job searches are scary, and especially in a small field like animal law. However, more and more positions open up each day. If you stay positive, believe in yourself, and believe in the skills that you have to offer to the field, you will find something that works for you. Thanks so much for listening, and enjoy the conference.
Hi, my name is Lavenda. I'm a staff attorney in the Animal Law Program at the Animal Legal Defense Fund. I have 2 cats, Lori and Ollie, and 1 dog, Bernie. My advice for those looking to get a job advocating for animals is to think outside the box. We need animal-friendly people within many areas of the legal system. You could be a prosecutor, lobbyist, work for a government agency like the USDA or APHIS, teach an animal law course as an adjunct professor, or you can work at a large firm and donate your money or time through pro bono work at an animal protection organization. Those looking to work within the field of animal law should focus on gaining general legal experience and becoming an exceptional attorney. Most general legal experience you gain will also be applicable to the field of animal law. The animals need the most creative, well-rounded, and effective attorneys they can get.
Hi everyone at the conference. My name is Tara Zavardo. I'm a wildlife attorney here at the Animal Welfare Institute. I'm invited to the meeting today. And this is my dog Suki, who comes. They stay home. I could give one piece of advice to law students who pro bono work, internships, and externships as often as you can, as early as you can. It's really the key to getting experience in this field and getting a job after you graduate. The best way to get experience is to just do that kind of work. To strategically choose your summer placements, maybe with an organization that's going to employ you when you graduate, or will give you connections to get that employment, and to just do it as soon as possible, as often as possible. Even pro bono hours during your semester would be good. If there's anything that I could have done differently during law school, it would have been to take more mediation and negotiation classes. We work with those skills every day in this field, and I think those classes are really valuable if your school offers them. The best thing about this job is just the fact that we really do win for animals and make strides for animals from time to time. I think it's really easy as law students to get caught up and discouraged in all of the cases you read about where plaintiffs aren't able to obtain standing in animal law cases. And really, we have a lot of success in this field. We work from litigation, persuasion, policy, education, and outreach. We work from all of those angles. And in doing so, we make more strides for animals. We also work with some really wonderful, dedicated people and some really great legal interns. So thanks very much. Enjoy the conference.
Hi everyone, my name is Mitzi Bolanos, and I was part of the first Animal Law LLM graduating class in 2013. I'm now Executive Director of Study Dog Project, a nonprofit that advocates against breed discriminatory policies, whether by the government or by the housing or insurance industries. My advice to those interested in a career in animal law would be to get involved. Be active in your community. Volunteer wherever you can, and if you can secure an internship, that's even better. Really build those relationships in your community, because the more we work together, the more we collaborate, the more we learn from each other, the more good we can do for animals. And that's also my favorite part about animal law. It's meeting people from all these different fields who come together, who learn from each other, and in the end, we find creative solutions to help animals. So thanks everyone, enjoy the conference, and I'm always available to potential or current students if you have any questions.
Hi everyone, my name is Jeff Pearce. I'm a litigation fellow at the Animal Legal Defense Fund. This is Daphne, one of 2 kittens who lives with me. It's Pip, and he's off having an adventure somewhere. The best advice I can give anyone wanting to get involved in animal protection is just to volunteer. I did some legal research for a peer organization while I was in law school and really enjoyed it. It persuaded me that the work was really interesting. It developed some connections for me in the field and really opened some doors. Having been at ALDF for the last year, I can tell you that attorneys already in practice who want to break into the field of animal protection, if we could be called that, can do so simply by volunteering. So my advice would be just to reach out and to make yourself available.
Hi, my name is Julian Zaverns. I am a licensed attorney in Illinois, where I went to law school in Chicago, and I am a current student in the Animal Law LLM program at Lewis and Clark Law School in Portland, Oregon. The best advice I have for anyone wanting to work in the animal law field is to strike a balance between having a thick skin and remaining sensitive to the issues and images and information that you receive. It's difficult when you're kind of overwhelmed with the plight of animals and the realities on the ground. So it's important to not let it get to you so much that you become incapable of doing your work effectively, because I don't think that's necessarily effective either. It also helps to have people to talk to, whether that's a therapist or just friends. I know for me, it's again a balance between having the lifelong friends that I made in the program to talk with about what we see and do all the time, because they're really the only ones who understand. And then also my professors and mentors within the school have been amazing resources for that, but then also the friends that have nothing to do with animal law or even the law at all. It's nice to sort of just be able to turn it off, not focus on what is unfortunately a lot of negative, and enjoy things, because then you can sort of refresh and be effective when you do turn back to your work.
Hi, my name is Cruz, and I am the campaign manager for horse soaring in the Equine Protection Department at the Humane Society of the United States. Some advice that I would give folks who are interested in getting a job in animal advocacy is, 1, be sure to network with as many people as you can. Make sure that you're introducing yourself to folks, and also be sure to stay in touch with those people. Send them an email, tell them what you're doing, so that way your name stays fresh in their minds. Also, be sure to gain hands-on experience, and the best way that I found to do that is through an internship. It's like a really long interview where you can really get very good experience, but also demonstrate to folks that you are passionate about what you're doing and competent to have a career in their organization. And lastly, definitely be persistent. Don't be afraid to interview for the same job 3 times. It might be the 4th time that you get the job. And also, definitely stay open to opportunities. It might not be the perfect thing that you were looking for, but you never know where it will lead. Thanks, and good luck.
My name is Akeisha Townsend-Eaton, and I'm the Senior Policy and Legal Resource Advisor at World Animal Net. I'm also a solo practitioner specializing in animal protection legislation. Definitely can't wait to get started advocating for animals. Join your Salad chapter, look for internships and externships in the field, and attend local hearings where possible. All of these experiences can help you not only determine which niche of animal protection law that you might be interested in the most, but can also establish valuable networks and connections in the field. I definitely say learn as much as you can about animal law when you're in law school by reading journal articles, enrolling in animal law or public interest clinics, joining professional animal law associations that welcome student involvement. If your law school currently has a course on animal law, definitely take it. But if not, take the initiative to learn how your other courses intersect with animal law. Virtually all of them will. Each day presents a unique opportunity to create a better world for animals. I couldn't think of anything better to use my law degree for.
Hello, my name is Lavenda. I'm a recent LLM graduate from Cruz and Clark Law School, and I'm speaking to you from Zurich, Switzerland, where I'm completing my postgraduate fellowship with a Swiss non-profit animal welfare organization. First thing first, do not get deep, go deep. Our goal is to abolish all animal exploitation. To this, we must first understand activities as a moral baseline. As far as experience in the field, I recommend getting the LLM animal law. Lewis and Clark offers an amazing program. Take advantage of various animal law courses and, of course, the animal law clinic. Apply for internships with or volunteer for animal rights organizations, rescue organizations, shelters. By doing so, you will be necessary expertise in the field. Make lifelong connections with clients, experts, activists, and lawyers. Then get out there and help to stop the use of animals for food, clothing, experiments, product testing, entertainment, wherever your passion takes you. I practiced corporate law for 7 years before finally deciding to leave and follow my heart. My legal experience left me with no illusions about the usefulness of the current legal system. As long as the animals are considered property, the legal system will continue to support this notion. A major social change is needed for the law to follow. Therefore, I believe that at this point, as an animal rights lawyer, I must support nonviolent abolitionist movement by protecting social activists. To quote one of the founders of the abolitionist movement, a useful animal rights lawyer is a criminal lawyer one day helping activists who are charged with civil disobedience. An administrative lawyer the next day helping activists obtain permits for demonstrations, and a constitutional lawyer the next day helping students who don't want to virus as part of their coursework, or helping prisoners who want vegan food. But the lawyer always serves and protects the activist. It is the activist who helps to change the paradigm. So this is my plan, and I look forward to working with you as close colleagues in the future.
Okay, so I think one of the themes that we heard from most of those speakers is the importance of networking and getting to know one another. Our field is growing tremendously, and there are so many people who are now in the field or who are entering the field, but nonetheless, a lot of times job opportunities arise because of personal connections that you make. So that really cannot be overemphasized, and hopefully you've taken advantage of being here this weekend to introduce yourself and to find those colleagues, speakers, other people that you find interesting, or that you maybe work for an organization you want to work for and you've introduced yourself. So definitely do that. And in terms of moving forward, I mean, do you each want to say a couple of things about any words of wisdom, or should we just jump into the Q&A part?
Well, I'll just add a couple of things that I noticed too, and it came across as slightly stalking with a couple of people with emails and calls, but really that does work. There's so many people who want positions in this field. We can't overemphasize how important it is to network, do really good work, jump at any opportunity, and be flexible. I mean, I think that was another theme. If you can get a job, you know, your path is going to become a lot easier, but it may not be the perfect job in your mind. And, you know, the people that we've ended up hiring, you know, have stuck in our mind when we've met them. We met Tom Linney at an Equal Justice Works conference when he was still a law student. He went back to his law school. He started a CELDIF chapter. He encouraged the law school to add an animal law course. And then 2 or 3 years later, when we had a job opening, we called him and we asked him if he'd like to interview. And now, how long have you been with ALDF?
5 years.
Over 5 years. He has his own radio show related to animal issues. So you just never know how long an impression will stick, so always be professional. And then also be creative. We've had 2 people in the last, I'd say, year and a half or 2 years come to us with public interest funding from their law school and saying, I'd like to come be a fellow for you, I'm coming with funding, will you hire me? And that makes it a lot easier to say yes. And then once you're in the organization and you've done a great job, then we're working a lot harder to find permanent funding for you. So I would always encourage everyone in the room to create your own opportunities, whether there's an existing job or not.
And just to follow up on that, so in the video, one of the speakers was Jess Johnson from the ASPCA. She had Brody the dog, and she participated in the national animal law competitions, and she was in the legislative drafting and lobbying competition, and Nancy Perry was one of the judges. And that was Nancy's first exposure to Jess. And she liked her so much, and she thought she did such a great job that it ended up being a job for Jess. And so Nancy, she remembered her from that experience at the competitions and said, and then when she was growing her team at the A, she remembered Jess, and now Jess has been there for, a couple of years. So those points of contact, they come in a lot of different ways, and they're all really important.
And just to add to that, Jess also mentioned she wished she would have taken more animal law courses while she was in school. But Jess went to Lewis and Clark, and so I know that some of you don't go to schools that offer very many animal law courses, or they don't offer any at all. So speaking from the perspective of the LLM, that program offers a bridge for attorneys who want to do this type of work, but they want more exposure. They want exposure to the subject matter, and they want to be in a place where there's a community of other lawyers who are working on the same things. And at Lewis and Clark, you have that, and you have the opportunity to come to the conference and to meet all the great people who are here. And there are a few LLMs in the audience, and I hope that they will say something about the program and how it helped them to get their positions. A couple of them did internships and externships as part of their degree program and have since found employment.
Well, once the restraining order is lifted, that's really when you I guess I'm trying to. I felt a little in some of the videos, which I think is true. There's definitely a sadness and a difficulty in this field. So I want to turn it a little bit and just try and focus on having fun and what motivates you every morning. So I think that's the challenge for all of us. But you've seen from the videos, they're now working in fields that they love. They feel empowered by what they're doing. They're excited about what they're doing, and it's just about, I think, us being true to ourselves and figuring out, do I care about this particular issue? Do I care about this this other issue? And finding what it is that gets you motivated in the morning, whatever it is that gets you excited. And I hope that you all will take from this is that finding what your passion is. I have full belief that that's going to create the greatest change and do the greatest good. So it's a matter of finding that. And some of you might have that already. I think it took me a little while to evolve and find that, but I think it'd be true for that.
Great. Well, we have about 50 minutes for Q&A, so we can just open it up. Anyone have anything?
So I heard a lot of people say that how important it is to get an internship, but my issue is I can't even get that far. And I'm just wondering how you differentiate yourself. What are the employers looking for? Because I have a lot of animal involvement, and I imagine that a lot of the other candidates do, so they're all going to look the same. So just any advice on that?
Yeah, it can be really hard because a lot of these positions are very competitive. A lot of people are trying to get that one internship, that one clerkship. So again, I think networking is the most important thing. So for example, if you know that there's an internship at a particular organization that you want, it would be great for you to find a professor or somebody else in the field, maybe who doesn't even work for that organization, but who's willing to give you a letter of recommendation or be able to make that call directly to their colleague that they know at that organization. I can't tell you how many times that happens. somebody is applying for a job, and maybe they've gone to Lewis and Clark, and I'll get a call, say, hey, Pam, what do you think about so-and-so? She was a student, or he was a student, and I'm able to say, oh, they're great, or whatever the recommendation might be. But that sort of thing really can distinguish you. So that's one thing. Number two, think outside the box in terms of internships, and by that, and clerkships, and even jobs. So animal law is broad and deep. It touches every other area. I mean, they used to say that everybody should take tax law because there's tax implications in virtually everything you do. You can almost say the same thing about animal law. I mean, it's contracts, it's torts, it's criminal law, it's constitution, it's everything. And there are a lot of organizations who perhaps their principal focus is not animal law, but it's a related issue. So, for example, if you wanted to clerk for an animal protection organization, or an organization that is working against domestic violence, or some other organization where you know that there will be animal law issues, being able to go in there, you're going to get really interesting, relevant experience. Maybe you can even be in a position to try to weave the animal law aspect into it. But it's another avenue for you to get in, get some relevant experience, be able to expand your base, get to know some people, and then that can lead to something else. And along those same lines, let me just say, none of us got out of law school and started in our dream job. Your career is going to be long and full and rich, and it will evolve. So don't worry if you don't, the minute you get out of law school, you don't have your dream job. The point is to start doing the work in some capacity, whether it's volunteer or as your actual job, and then know that different opportunities will occur over the course of your career.
And to add to that, they emphasize in the video volunteer, volunteer, volunteer. And to also build on what Pam said, I was working in private practice, but I was an ALDF volunteer attorney member. And so they would send me cases, and that's how I got to know the staff at ALDF. I would just take whatever they would send me. So when there was a staff attorney position available, they already knew who I was. And then also, I think, are you a law student? Mm-hmm. So, you can be creative and build your resume locally, working for the local organizations, but I know a number of people, and I also did this when I was in law school. I approached a public interest attorney professor because we didn't have an animal law professor, and I said, can I work for credits and connect with our local shelter and help them with local legislation? Can I form a nonprofit for credit? So anything you're interested in, you can create your own experience, get the credits, and then put it on your resume, which will be more appealing than if you're looking for a national position.
Well, I think now, too, is a neat time, because even just 10 years ago, there weren't as many opportunities for local work. But, there's animal protection organizations in Nevada, and Minnesota, and New Mexico, and places that you wouldn't think there was a local connection. And that really helped me in Texas, because I worked with the Texas Humane Legislation Network, and it was nice because I had the national support of ALDF. I was coming to the conferences with Lewis and Clark. And then I was also doing something locally, and I think we forget about the impact of what we can do locally. It's hard because there's such a presence and so many great things that are done by national organizations. But I'm definitely hopeful that you all will get involved locally as well.
And speaking of local, for those of you who are interested in Humane Society type of work in a different context, and again, you can use your legal skills in really effective ways that are not necessarily as a lawyer. So, for example, being the executive director of a Humane Society, which gets involved in local legislation, that can be very, very powerful. There's an organization called the Society of Animal Welfare Administrators, SAWA, and if you go to their website, again, Society of Animal Welfare Administrators, they have a job center. And if you click on that, it's updated really frequently, and it lists jobs from humane societies all over the country. And a lot of them are vet techs, and some of which might be, there might be some people out there with a veterinary background. But a lot of them are for executive directors, directors of development, directors of communication, directors of legislative affairs. So again, being sort of thinking outside the box in terms of just the traditional, I'm going to go and file a complaint and sue somebody, you can find some really interesting opportunities at a local level with organizations that are really making an impact for animals in a legal context.
So, this
assumption here that everyone's going to go to law school? Because I'm a recycled environmental planner / specialist, and I've been interested in animal law for some time, and I've been considering going to law school, and staff such as Tom Minnie has been talking to me and helping me with that. And I'm at a point, and I appreciate hearing information about jobs like the Society of Animal Welfare Administrator. So other jobs that maybe one doesn't have to go to law school, but would you all recommend that's needed, to get an animal welfare position or to put oneself in a good position for that?
Yes. So what she asked was that she's not a lawyer and she's not currently in law school, although she has been considering it. And does one have to go to law school to make a difference for animals? And of course, the answer is no. There are lots of different ways that you can make a difference for animals. Our focus is law school and lawyers, just because it's a law conference, and most everybody else here is probably a law student or who here is a law student or a lawyer? Raise your hand. Yeah. So that's more the focus of it. But obviously, there are all sorts of things one can do without a law degree. But yeah, the nature of our focus right now is more of the legal context.
Well,
yes.
Because I'm a congressional district leader with the Humane Society of the United States, volunteer work, and
right.
So. I've been helping out with political campaigns over the years for animals.
So right off the bat, you're doing work without a law degree.
My niche, that way, and I'm just wondering if I should get more, education, and so this is helpful for me. Thank you.
Good.
I was just going to say, speaking to that a little bit, I'm the Portland Program Director for HEART. We do humane education. I'm also a licensed attorney, and I completed the LLM in animal law. And I think that one interesting thing about this line of work is just that what I'm beginning to really notice is that we need people to work on educational policy. Essentially what we do is we go into K-12 schools, we talk to the kids about animal protection, animal ethics, and human rights. These are major issues that they're not getting a lot of access to, and it's heartbreaking because they're the ones that are going to have to deal with a lot of these problems as adults. So what I'm really beginning to notice is that it would be wonderful to have more people who are really interested in public policy, in a myriad of different ways. I mean, I talk to people about educational policy. We can help so many animals by exposing kids to this type of education, but we're up against things like the Common Core, Smarter Balanced, high-stakes testing that is depleting teachers' ability to really exercise that creative control, that autonomy to bring in what they call supplemental education. So it's like, if you go to educational policy, perhaps you don't feel like you're really engaging in some sort of direct legal action or policy action, perhaps for animals, but you really, truly are, and you'd be making a huge difference. So I don't know if that helps at all, but I'm also just plugging HEART if anybody wants to.
And can I add to the HEART comment? We really appreciate that. We have a series at ALDF called Where Are They Now? And I think we featured one of your colleagues in Chicago. And we've partnered, ALDF has, with HEART before. Because of this great program, you can get trained to go into these classrooms and teach these kids. And we've had a lot of our volunteer attorney members do that. So it's another way to get involved in animal protection, outside the traditional path of being a litigator. So thank you.
Yeah. So other questions, other comments, anything you want to talk about? Yes.
Piggybacking off of this discussion, I'm also not a lawyer and not in law school, but I'm a philosophy professor who specializes in animal ethics. But I'm thinking about making a career change too, and I'm just wondering, but it's difficult because I'm not a student, so I make a full salary, so sort of thinking, okay, I'm just going to quit my job and go to law school and have no money at all. And I don't even like money, it doesn't matter, but yeah, I do need to pay my bills. So I'm just wondering, these internships and things that you're talking about, do they ever accept people who aren't in law school, and do they pay any money for someone?
You could
really need to be in law school or be a lawyer.
It completely depends on the organization. And did you want to respond to that, Sarah?
Yeah, I was going to say, I was very, very lucky. I got paid when I was an intern at PACCA, and then also at the Humane Society, so it just depends on the opportunity. And then I know that the Humane Society right now, one of their departments has a
intern that is a teacher, or was a teacher, and is now starting a new career. So I don't think that that's a barrier by any means.
Yeah, and a lot of especially the larger organizations, they have so many different departments that, like I said, law school is not a prerequisite to doing incredibly impactful work in the field. But yeah, I think that Sarah's experience is a good example of that.
With the Animal Legal Defense Fund, I've hired like policy, legislative staff that don't have a lot of degrees. I have a lot of experience working for local and state governments and policy. I've written ordinances and so, just the governmental and legislative process, I have a lot of experience, but then so I've dealt with law a lot, but not the law degree, so have you ever...
Well, Chris Green, the director of the Legislative Affairs Department of ALDF, just walked in. It's perfect timing.
Yeah, we're still expanding out. We do have plans to expand for sure. I think it's interesting because HSUS, that's great resources. They have sort of the person in every state, mock chicken in every pot. ASPCA is doing a sort of a version where they have sort of regional folks covering 5 or 6 states apiece. Best Friends, they kind of do it by subject matter. So this person is covering BSL issues. This one's doing community cat stuff. And I think we're going to do sort of a hybrid of that where we have people geographically dispersed because, as you can tell by the voice, I travel a lot. It can be pretty wearing. And so you want to have people kind of specialize, I think, by subject matter, but also have someone close enough that when a hearing, because I mean, like yesterday, there was one business hour between the Idaho Ag Gag bill being introduced and the hearing being held. It was introduced like 4 p.m. on a Friday, and the hearing is like, Monday to Tuesday, like 8 a.m. So you just have to jump on a plane like that. I mean, I think I bought one round trip ticket in the last 2 months, and I tried to kind of travel 20 times because you just go to the next place, you don't know what's going to explode. So but yeah, I think the other thing we want to do is sort of have folks that may not be full-time staff, but still going to be part of our network that will be, again, dispersed geographically, that might be able to kind of jump in and help things. But that's something we're still working on. I think ultimately we want to have someone in Sacramento, California, because we're a California organization. So with some of the folks in the California legislature, and have someone in D.C. to handle a lot of regulatory meetings. I end up covering a lot of that for our litigation department, just because I'm usually closest. I'm not that way, but it is something that's, and then have a couple folks in the Midwest-ish. So, but yeah, it's still a work in progress. So it's probably going to be a little while before we will be able to kind of reach out and have more people doing that kind of work. But yeah.
Thank you all for this amazing panel. So a question about what organizations look for while you're working. So aside from the general, like being good at your job, qualities or getting along with the people, are there any characteristics that you look for in interns and clerks that might be helpful to know going into the position?
I can take a crack at that one. So we get a lot of resumes, as you can imagine. And the ones that we don't really entertain are the ones that, talk about how much they love their companion animal. So in addition to this internship, we want to see active involvement in a CELDF chapter. You've taken an animal law course. You're aware of our resources. We have clerkships that are paid. We have scholarships that we give out, which, by the way, are very underutilized. So I would encourage you all to go to our website and look at our clerkship scholarship opportunities, as well as our project grant opportunities and travel grant opportunities to go to conferences. So someone where we can see they've been involved in the moot court competitions, the national animal law competitions, have attended conferences, come with strong recommendations from our colleagues. I think Pam made a great point about that. So again, it's just getting out there and networking and having a great base to offer.
And the other thing, too, that I would add is I remember working with a student, and she was fluent in Mandarin Chinese. And she was kind of like, yeah, whatever. And I'm like, no, not whatever. That was an amazing skill, and there are a lot of international organizations who would just love somebody who has both the language and cultural fluency in English and Chinese or Spanish or whatever it is. So if you have specific additional skills like that, being able to highlight some of those things in addition to everything else, and think creatively. And the other thing too that most of you now, if not all of you, have been able to meet people here at the conference. You know people who are working in organizations, people who are teaching in the field. Reach out to them to look at your resume, because most of us would welcome that opportunity to help you do that. And I know that Cathy Hessler, Professor Cathy Hessler's here. Raise your hand. Here she is. She's brilliant at looking at resumes and helping students think through how to present yourself in the best possible way. And also keep in mind that for each position that you're applying for, you may have to tweak your resume. You're not saying anything different, but maybe how you're presenting, which things you're emphasizing over others, that may shift depending upon what you're looking for. So you need to be really thoughtful each time. And if you can have a trusted advisor who's maybe been in the field for a while, who will help you go through that process, that can be really helpful as well. And especially if that trusted advisor knows somebody or knows the organization that you're applying to, because then they can say, oh, okay, I've been working at HSUS or the ASPCA or ALDF, for a number of years, and I know that they really find this interesting, so let's highlight that. Yeah.
And just to add on that, Priscilla, too, another thing that we do look for is self-starters. There's so much work to be done. All of us are understaffed. There's not enough resources. So we're looking for someone on their resume who can say, okay, well, they started this self-chapter, or they started this nonprofit when they were in law school, or they created their own opportunity. Because that means when we hire that person, they're going to be able to maximize their work and their effect for the organization.
I think you were asking also, once you actually have an internship, what colleagues you're looking for as far as full-time. And I know exactly following up on what Pam was just saying, everyone's really maxed out, usually with their own things. People who are drawn to this type of work are people who want to take on a lot of things. And so exactly that. Having one that's like, hey, I've got this great project, I want to go run with it, that's great. Because when I was coming on, I was a one-person show. And hey, we're going to offer you on these interns. That's going to add more work than it's going to alleviate for me, having to manage all those people. Initially, so it's, someone who can kind of I'm going to go do this, I can kind of be self-contained and come back to a great work product. That's great. Not someone who's calling me every 3 hours, okay, what should I do next?
Don't do that. And that's a really good point. Everybody is really maxed out, and your goal is to make people's lives easier and do good work for the animals. So being able to take the points that Pam and Chris have raised and internalize that and think about how you can be really helpful and make somebody's life easier, that's the kind of person we will all want to hire, is somebody who's going to do good work, take some of the load, help the animals, and do it in a way that just really adds value.
I think that happened with Kelly, right? She came on a one-shoot thing, and everyone,
Right. Kelly is the example. You weren't here, Chris, but she was one of our clerks while she was in law school, and she was really creative and talked to her school about public interest funding, and then she did that for a year as a fellow, and then we didn't know what we would do without her. Okay, well then let's look for that permanent funding. So again, it's get in any way you can and prove yourself, and she'll do anything, and she's a self-starter, and that's the type of person you want around, particularly at a nonprofit.
Usually.
And Kelly, do you have any advice? Here we are talking for you.
And Kelly, you graduated 2 years ago?
2013.
Okay.
I would say Solid is a really good opportunity to get to know people at ALDF also, not only to get stuff to put on your resume, but keep Nicole and I, in the loop of what you're doing, and also applying for the scholarships, just getting us to read your resume and see how awesome you are, and then we'll have you in our mind.
And that is Dr. Nicole Plata. She's our ALDF Student Programs Coordinator. If you don't know her, you should meet her today at some point.
Yeah, I was going to say, Kelly and I were really in a very similar boat. We were actually talking in June. Our strategy was I pictured myself as a cat holding onto the screen. That's how I was with HSUS. But I started out, I think your question was internships, even how to get them. And I think the resume is a really good component, but I I mean, we take that loosely, and I think a lot of it is networking. That's so annoying. I hate it, but it is not about just like networking and introducing yourself to as many people as possible, but just be natural and use whatever is natural to you to create a rapport. I think that's what's really important. That's what's going to distinguish yourself when you're trying to get an internship. I was with the ASPCA and interning, and so that's my second point, just keep your ears checked, because they had an opportunity to go to New Jersey. They were campaigning to overturn Governor Cruz's veto on a gestation crate bill. So I went out there. I was interning with the ASPCA, but HSUS was kind of running, or was part of a major part of the ground game. So I met a ton of HSUS folks. So I finished my internship with the ASPCA, and then someone I had met there actually reached out to me because I was still in the job. I just finished graduating from the Alamo program and was in the job search part and didn't have one. So he actually reached out to me and said, would you be interested in doing an internship? So I did that for 6 months, and then, like, Kelly was just hanging on, and literally like a cat on the screen. And then he reached out to someone in the other department, and that's how I got my job. And someone at the ASPCA who had previously worked in equine protection introduced me to her previous boss. So it's really about creating rapport and just doing it naturally, because for me, the interview process, and Natasha and Cathy know this, I mean, like, I'm a very outgoing person, but if you get me in front of the interview, I'm like, hi, my name is Sarah, and it's awful. I hate everything about it. So, I mean, for me, to be able to just be natural and be while I'm interviewing and talking to people, I mean, that was my interview. 3 steps later, though, you know, so.
And one thing that surprised me during my own, because I'm a relatively recent hire myself, it's been about 1.5 years, that I would go to conferences a lot and speak occasionally, but just go because I was interested in the subject matter. And it was weird hearing that being described back to me in my interview as volunteer work. Like, oh, you can do all this stuff as a volunteer. I just had never really compartmentalized and thought of it that way. I just did because I was interested in it. But so exactly what Sarah's saying, if you get alerts, sign up for all the different groups, major groups, get their action alerts and say, hey, we're having this big thing at the State House, or, you know, there's a rally, or, hey, we need people to show up at this hearing. Do that. Show that you have the willingness to go, take time out of your day and be there, and you're going to meet a ton of other people. And there's an interesting study done in Britain on luck, trying to quantify whether luck actually exists. And so they surveyed all these people on whether they thought were lucky and they thought of themselves lucky. And there were 2 constants that they actually did find. There were 2 kind of commonalities. One were that you had a massive, these people who were lucky had a very large circle of acquaintances, which makes sense that the more people you know, the more opportunities are going to come your way. So that's why you want to go out and meet as many people as you can. And the other was living your life in such a flexible manner that you could actually take advantage of the opportunity when it arose. So the first part of that is so important. Just go meet as many people as you can, because by definition, the more people you meet, the more people are going to have you in mind when something pops up.
Sorry, one more thing about meeting people and networking. This is a really great conference for that, obviously. But there's also 2 other ones in the summer that are animal related. One is Taking Action for Animals, and that's the HSUS conference, I think. And then there's an Animal Rights National Conference also. And there's tons of nonprofits and awesome people at both those conferences. So more people to meet that.
And Claire, and then Cathy, I'm going to put you on the spot after Claire talks, because Cathy Hessler she's been an amazing mentor to so many students, and we'd love to have you just give whatever pearls of wisdom you'd like to give on how to help people find jobs. But Claire.
Shout out Cathy.
Oh, yeah. You need to listen to her. Okay.
But I would also say, I went to a vegetarian festival when I was getting my law degree in Florida. I met Nathan Runkle, and at that time they didn't have a legal internship program established. And I just said, hey, I'm a law student, I'll come work for free this summer. And ultimately, help them establish a legal internship program. I think it's really important to think outside of the box and to not be afraid to say, I know you don't already have something in place, I will come work for free nonetheless, find work. I was leafletting in between going down and meeting with pro bono counsel to help out with legal stuff. So also, just one final, I'm plugging a lot of stuff today, but I also work for Hampton Creek, and it's just I feel like those types of organizations, that's a really, really new burgeoning area that you could get involved in. And I'm sure if somebody wanted to contact them, there would be some sort of opportunity to really get involved, possibly with House Counsel or something like that. I also have a ton of free Just Mayo. Don't say without your Just Mayo. So Cathy.
So thank you. And it's great that we have this panel on these wonderful people to give you advice. I guess one thing I would add is use your common sense. Right? So you're hearing an awful lot of information, you have to make it make sense for you. So you're hearing, go meet as many people as possible, and that is ideal. But there are limits on what you can do and how much time you have. So don't go crazy, because when you meet those people, you want to be in a place to be able either to offer to do something and then to do it well. Right? We have a lot of folks running around trying to meet as many people as possible, trying to be all things to everyone, and you can't do that well, and then you're not going to represent yourself well, and people are going to say, that's not the impression you want to leave, right? So common sense. You want to widen your circles. You want to do stuff that's kind of close to your core, but you want to push a little bit out of your boundaries, right? So you don't want to just stay siloed in one particular area that you think you're already good at or you already want to do. You want to push a little bit. You don't want to do everything new, right? So think about the advice you're getting and sort of at the margins and where it fits for you. And if there are things you need to work on, talk to the people who know you. And if we're willing to be honest with you and say, okay, so maybe you need to sort of ramp it up in an interview, or maybe you need to tone it down in an interview. Maybe you need to not talk about your cat all the time. So talk to people who know you and are willing to be honest. Okay, look, I care about you, and I know you have strengths that I want you to show me. And here's some stuff you can do to polish off the edges, right? The other thing that I would just say really quickly is passion and patience are a hard combination. So the people who come to do this work are filled with passion, right? And patience doesn't come easy. You want that job right away. You want to save that dog today. You want to end practice farming tomorrow, right? Patience is a virtue, and it's a virtue in the job process. So continue to seek advice. Continue to talk to your colleagues. Continue to talk to all of us, right? It's a journey. And the other thing is the first job you get is not the last job you will have. All right? And that's actually a good thing. None of us are where we started. And I think we're all better people because of it. We have increased experience and perspective that help us help each other and help you and help the animals better. So it's a journey, right? So if you can kind of relax, know that you're going to be on this path for a long time. You're in it for the long haul, so it's sustainability. You don't want to burn out, right? You don't want to burn bridges. You don't want to do any of that kind of stuff right up front. And passion and patience, Mary, those two moves fine.
I just have a quick comment on what you were going to say. What you were talking about. I've been working with animals for a very long time. On hands-on, at every job that involved animals. And I ended up going to an unconventional law school where I went at night and was able to finish and still have to take the bar and get through that. But there are other ways to do it, and even in the job that I have now, I work with best friends and I'm the lead in their behavior department. But they allow me and humor me whenever there's anything legal. They allow me to come here, and they allow me to help them with grade specific legislation and other things. So even though I work with dogs every day, which is what I love to do, I still get to have that opportunity to do other things. So it isn't always that conventional path that you go to law school, that you end up doing exactly what it is you want to do that way. And I've had a very long career working with animals and then decided at the last minute. I guess last minute. I don't know, maybe it's not last minute. Very old some days when I look around. But I wouldn't trade that experience that I've had all those years working with animals. And I think in the end it's going to make me a much better attorney, because I can definitely, if you're going to put me one-on-one with somebody who's never touched an animal before, I think that's really going to give me a lot of credibility. So it's not always a conventional path. There's lots of ways to get there.
Speaking of unconventional paths, I think all of our paths have been really sort of interesting. And I'd love, Natasha, for you to sort of talk a little bit about what your path has been, because your path was really interesting. Go ahead.
The weirdest?
It might be.
So I did go to Lewis and Clark, and when I was a lawyer, or when I was a law student, rather, I wanted to take all the animal law courses that were here. There was only one, And that was it. And I took it, and I was a bit disillusioned. I didn't know how I was going to make any money at this, how I was going to get a job. So I kind of stopped. I didn't do anything in law school animal related. I looked into criminal law. I liked that. So afterwards, I was a prosecutor here in Portland, and I didn't really think too much about it, but I skipped one. Sorry, I worked for a legislative assistant, which is something I would really highly encourage you to do. Amy spoke to me about wanting to run for office, and I think that's great. I would never want to run for office, but I'm glad that there are people who care about animals willing to do that. And so if you can work for a senator or a congressman or woman, that's great because you have their ear. They probably don't know anything about animal law. And when I was down there, I was able to just run with a bill that Scott Heiser with the LDF helped me through. It's a cross-reporting bill, and we just went through in 1 year. And so I was like, oh, great, I can do animal law. And after that, I was a prosecutor, and I was able to do some animal abuse cases. They were horrible. I saw judges who didn't care. Animal cases were the joke of the entire courthouse. Because they brought out all the crazy people, worse than child abuse cases, and it was really, really difficult. And after that, I left and I went to lobby and do government work for Oregon Health and Science University. And they have a primate center where they do research on primates. And they also teach medical students using pigs. And doing that work was difficult for me. I had a conflict about it, but I knew it was important because I knew I needed to have those conversations with those scientists and be able to try to change from within. I didn't last very long there, only 2 years because this opportunity came up for me to be here and do the LLM program, not do it, be the director. And so because I knew Pam, and I reminded her that she did know me when I applied. I sent her an email, and whether or not she remembered me, she pretended she did, or maybe you did. And I knew other people in the animal community from LDF with Scott, and HSUS worked on that bill, Kelly Peterson, and in a roundabout way, now here I am.
So let me give you even a little bit more detail about this. So Natasha, when she was in law school, I think we only had one animal law class here, and she took that class, and when she first applied, I really didn't have, because there have been a lot of students, and I didn't have a really, really clear memory of her, but Kelly Peterson, who is the director of all the state directors at HSUS, she just happens to be located in Portland, we know each other. And she called me and she said, okay, I know you're getting 800,000 resumes for this position, but you've got to really take a close look at Natasha. You've got to. And Natasha was already on the short list because I loved her experience. A prosecutor, working for OHSU, lobbying, doing the legislative stuff. She had this really interesting, well-rounded background, which I thought could really add some dimension to the program. So she was already on the short list, but when Kelly called me, I went, oh, yeah, because I know Kelly, I trust her judgment, and so if Kelly is saying, she took the time to call me and say, you really need to take a closer look at Natasha, I'm going to take a closer look. And that was the power of networking. And of course, Natasha's here and she's fabulous, as Kelly said she would be. So that all worked out really well. In my own experience, which is strange, and of course I went to law school in 1805, and so it was a very long time ago, and animal law did not exist. I think maybe there was one school on the East Coast that even had an animal, it just didn't exist. But I was one of those people, I was interested in animals, I felt connected to animals, I was troubled by the injustice that I saw about animals. I had read Peter Singer's Animal Liberation. I'd read Tom Regan's Case for Animal Rights. So some of those tomes which came out in the 70s and 80s that are very important books. But I didn't even think that it was possible for me to practice law in this area at that time. So I started practicing law at a large firm in San Francisco doing labor and employment law. And after I'd done that for a couple of years, I decided, I think I have enough time in my mind to do some pro bono work, so I just kind of started exploring a little bit, and I found this organization, ALDF, who happened to be located in the Bay Area. I'm like, what? And I met Joyce, and I started doing volunteer work for ALDF, and I continued to work in labor and employment law for a few years while I was doing pro bono work. And the great thing about it was that even though I was doing labor and employment, everything I was learning and how I was being trained in terms of the litigation, negotiation, mediation, deposition skills, dealing with all those things, absolutely transferable skills. And because I was working at this firm, I was making all sorts of connections throughout the legal community who were not necessarily involved in animal law, but who could open doors for me for animal law issues. So being able to, I started doing some citizen lobbying, and so being able to go down to the legislature and say, okay, I'm with this large firm, I'm not with an animal organization, was actually kind of a powerful thing, because they just assumed that, oh, okay, well, you must be with this firm, you must be okay, which, boy, they were wrong. But anyway, but it was really powerful. And then after I did that for a number of years, I talked to Joyce and I said, you really need to start a criminal justice program at ALBF, and you need to hire me to do it. And she said, okay. And by that time, I'd been on the screen door for a long enough time that it was sort of a natural flow. But and then I started teaching, and anyway, now I'm here. But the point is that I was actually practicing law in an entirely different area for a lot of years before I started doing animal law. And everything that I learned, all the training I received, I've been able to utilize for the benefit of animals. So there are lots of different ways you can do that. And Pam's path was, you were in private practice, and you.
When I went to law school, I don't know, maybe 1850. my law school did not have a law class. Excuse me, we didn't have a seldom chapter. Excuse me. But I knew I wanted to advocate for animals, and it started for me very small. I had adopted a dog who had been abused, and I really couldn't understand why anyone would abuse an animal. So I approached a public interest professor, and I said, can I start a nonprofit for credit on the link between domestic violence and animal cruelty? And for, it was 2 credits, and it's still around, decades later. But it allowed me to create my own opportunity in law school. And so that was something that kind of started my foundation and my path and my resume. When I graduated from law school, because my law school did not have an animal law course, I approached the administration about teaching an animal law course. And they let me. So it's all about looking for the windows of opportunities.
Yeah. And Tom, do you want to tell us about your path?
Sure. So yeah, I guess what excites me about animal law is that I was an environmental guy and a human rights guy to begin with, and those were my passion areas. And then when I met ALBF at a job fair, it really brought home the idea of justice, for animals. And we have so many organizations that are fighting for the protection of the elderly or children. Or human rights issues, and so I felt like animal law was definitely the new field and the area that really we needed more advocates in. And so I was really stirred by meeting Pam and Steve Wells and working with Nicole, and then coming to the conference at Harvard and here at Lewis and Clark, and really just kind of fell in love with it. And I had no idea that my life would end up this way. And I think talking about Professor Hessler, talking about evolving and being patient, and I think that's. And Katie, I think, are you in the back there? Oh, no, sorry. I thought she was there earlier. But, in times in our life, I think, we just have to be creative in what we're doing and try and evolve. And Professor Randy Abate is here, and, he's a well-respected professor in many areas, including environmental law. And now, recently has just taken on animal laws as a professor and run with it. Now he's teaching the course and also writing a book about animal law and environmental law. And I guess as my role as pro bono coordinator for ALBF, I have to do the plug that I hope that you all will, if you do end up working in a law firm, stay in touch with me, because some of our biggest cases, Ben the Bear, Tony the Tiger, the Barkworks case, Puppy Mills, have all been pro bono attorneys involved from firms that they're out doing work that maybe they're not the happiest about all the time, but they've been able to create great change for animals in their spare time. So I hope for those of you that are thinking the law firm route and maybe to start and evolve and go somewhere else, that you'll stay in touch with us and try and do some volunteer work for us.
And then I'd love to hear from Chris and Cathy about your paths, because you both have really interesting paths and how you got here as well. Chris, rock and roll. Full story.
Great
You
story.
have to tell the entire story.
Yeah, no, I don't know. I'm trying to figure out how far to go back. Same thing, finding a spot. Like I probably 1825.
I'm sorry, I made myself
I had no idea what I always wanted to be a veterinarian. Good thing I watched the James Herriot series, read all the books, and my high school guidance counselor told me to not even try. I wouldn't be able to get good enough grades to get into vet school. In her defense, I was a total screw up in high school. I did well in the ACT. Like, oh, you should think about going to college. Like, all right, I guess I'll go to college. And so I just kind of took general classes, went into kind of wildlife stuff, and then realized about how to keep all these animals alive so other people could shoot them, which I wasn't really into. Just happened to stumble into an environmental science course. It was team taught by some folks, and like, oh, it's great. So I transferred schools to be closer to home in Illinois, and all these great environmental courses and no program. So I just petitioned the school to create an environmental science program and pull it all together. Same thing, just like creating your own niche, like finding something that you're interested in, and like exactly what Cam was saying. So then all my professors were saying you need to go to law school to get some enforcement power because no one's listening to the stuff that we're finding out about. And I went to law school and did the first year, and I was sort of disenchanted with the practice of environmental law, so took 6 years off to do music business stuff that I'd kind of been doing on the side.
Can you go into that a little bit more?
Yeah, let's hear some more detail about that.
Sophomore year of college, my best friend and I took all our student loan money and opened up a punk rock club with on the side, and I started tour managing and booking a lot of bands, and was the tour manager for rock bands for off and on for 10 years. So I went back to law. Then in that process, I decided I kind of got to the point where it was really fun and lucrative, and I'd done much stuff, but it still it wasn't as fulfilling, and I wanted to do something more kind of socially justice related. And I kind of decided I still want to be a veterinarian. And by that point, I had gotten great grades and had all the requirements of a life science degree. And so University of Illinois said, oh, yeah, we'll give you a spot. And so the dean of the students at the law school calls up and says, hey, dude, it's been like 6 years. The administrative board is changing, and they've been really cool with you staying out because you're doing all this great stuff. But, you luck of the draw, you don't know who you're going to get next time. And I was like, sure, I think I'm going to go to vet school anyway. And she's like, well, it's funny you say that. We have this guy, Stephen Wise, coming to teach us animal law course for the first time. And, Harvard was only the 9th school to teach the course, and it was like, look, the definition of old school, they really don't reach out and do progressive things until other places have done them. And so it was kind of front page news on the New York Times that they were teaching this course. So I look into it, I thought, oh, this actually seems really cool. And the vet school was like, yeah, we'll hold you a spot. And so I did that and took a class with Steve, and the light bulb went off, and it's exactly what I wanted to do. I ended up then writing kind of a piece about kind of vet malpractice for my third-year paper, and wanted to turn it into something larger. So I called up out here randomly because it was kind of turning into a larger piece of work. And I just called the Animal Law Review, and Holly Gibbons was the EIC at the time. She answered the phone, and we ended up talking for 2 hours. I just basically wanted, it only came out once a year, and I just wanted to see, I don't want to put all this extra work into something. If someone's going to scoop me, you already have an article lined up for next year. And that brought me out here. I was just reminiscing about it. I think it's 11 years ago. And I think I spent a month and a half out here just kind of wrapping up my paper. But in that process, meeting all the folks involved with the SALDEF here. And that just led to knowing a ton of people in the field. And so I finished my courses, went back on tour with Garbage and one of the Metallica guys for about 6 months. And that allowed me to save up enough money that I could spend 2 years kind of doing a self-finance fellowship, just doing nothing but thinking and writing about this big kind of academic piece. And that kind of then, it randomly ended up being the thing that a lot of people wanted to know about in the field, the valuation thing. And so it just kind of all of a sudden I was being asked to come speak about it. And it just, they call it volunteer work or whatever, but I was just doing it because I was interested in it. So I continued to kind of do animal law on the side for the next 10 years. I was still doing some music stuff, owned a film and fine arts production company, owned an art exhibition that travels around. I keep quitting these jobs that involve all this travel, and then other jobs that involve even more travel, and it's still happening. But yeah, so finding a way that you can do animal law stuff on the side. You can go write, you can speak at conferences, you can be involved, you can do pro bono work, and then just at a point in my life where the stuff I was doing was still great, but it still wasn't as fulfilling as this other stuff that mattered more to me. And circumstances in my life changed, and I happened to go. I spoke at a conference, and I really want to get more in the swing of it. So I went to ALC's website, and they bundled events and opportunities on the same button. So I was just looking for other conferences, And you click on that, and it says like job listings. I was like, the field had always been so small that like any job would just evaporate. You find that actually you don't have time to post a job on it. So just for like shits and giggles, I click on it to see, and the first job listed was I couldn't have scripted it better myself for something to align with my own interests. So keep searching. I mean, you just never know. And then, it was a point in my life like, wow, I could actually make this. Yeah, this could work. And my grandma, the circumstances in my life had changed where I could jump to full, and I could not be happier. I mean, once you leap to doing the work that is the stuff that's most fulfilling to you, there's no comparison. Even if it's crazy hours, even if it's whatever, it doesn't feel like work.
Yeah. And Chris may or may not know this, but the theme again is going above and beyond. And one thing he did in his interview when there was a lot of candidates is he came in very prepared, but also with model laws and suggestions and ways that he would move forward if he had got this position. That was really creative, and it made you stand out. And it's that thing about going the extra mile and doing something that makes you unique.
If I could add to that, I've sat in on some interview process with other departments a little bit, and it is stunning that folks will not. There's a couple folks that are just. I mean, you made it all the way through to the phone interview, and like we'll ask a simple question. Carl will say, "Okay, so what are the cases that ALC is working on that you're really interested in?" And it's first like, you can hear him quickly go to the website and type stuff up. And like, are you kidding me? Like, you're doing your job. Research it. If you're going for a job, research it as much as possible, because you know what? That's an indicator to us that like, okay, if you're not even willing to put in like 10 minutes to prepare for this job, what kind of job are you going to do preparing as an employee?
Yeah. So the rock star route, that works. And then there's the
contrast.
a different type of rock star route.
So when I was in law school, I was in law school in the 80s, and in Virginia, it was a really different time in the law, and I was interested in public interest and social justice. Pretty much anything to do with any of that was my thing. And I was William and Mary. I was the only student in my class, the class ahead of me, the class behind me, that was public interest law. So that was the environment I was working in. So we had to. I created 30 student groups to do that kind of stuff. And I started teaching nonviolence. That was sort of my philosophical approach to social justice, was trying to eliminate and address violence and oppression in society. When I started to teach nonviolence, then we talked about all these issues that you might sort of think about, and then we started talking about animals. And I was like, this really is a violence issue. This is a social justice issue. And as Tom said, it's one people aren't talking about. So again, this is the 80s, right? And so I was already crazy as a public interest person. As a woman lawyer in Virginia was already weird enough for rules. We couldn't wear pants in court. It was a different time. It was a little crazy. And so now I wanted to do animal stuff. And so I tried to keep that a little up and down. And I started working at legal services. And I had to talk to my boss and say, so if I get arrested, is that going to be a problem? He's like, no, it's fine. I'm like, are you sure? So I was doing, anti-war protests and all kinds of stuff. And then I started doing what we called then hunt stops, hunt sabotage, hunt protests. Going out in the woods and kind of being in the way of the hunters while they were trying to do their thing. Are you home? Because I'm a little nervous about this, right? Because you get up at 3 in the morning, you go out, the hunters are going out, they're drinking.
And they have guns.
They have guns. And they're not happy, right? They're not happy that you're there messing up their vibe, right? And my mom would see me on TV at the protest, and she would call me and say, you better get home. And I'm like, I'm home now, Mom. And then I go back to the protest. So she was kind of worried about my physical safety. I have to say nobody ever got hurt, ever, that I saw or worked with. But I had these sort of two separate worlds. I had my super activist world and my legal world. And so in my legal world, I was helping people in my role. And then they started to merge a little. And at one of the hunt protests we went to, it was this really sort of bizarre story. Hunter shot a duck. It's Thanksgiving Day. My husband and 2 other people jumped into this pond to try to save the duck. The hunter's dog jumps in, right? It's a race to get the duck. We get our side, get the duck. And so they're holding this duck, right, in the Department of Natural Resources officer's car. They're trying to arrest this person, right? And I walk up and I say, I'm a voyeur. And everything stops. And it was the first time they were going to haul, the person going to kill the dog. And we're like, no, we need to get a wildlife rehabilitator here to see if we can save the dog. It was a really long story, but it was the first time I actually felt the power of saying, I'm an attorney. I could walk into a courtroom and I could win a case with my clients, but there were a ton of attorneys, and that was what we were doing. It was the first time things changed like that, and we were about to save a life, right, if we could. And then I was like, okay, this is a bite-sized gig. Like, how do I merge these things? And it took a long time. I was a law professor since 1992, and talking to all the schools that I work at.